Everyone, I'm Kim McLaughlin from Leader Communications, and today I'm going to share with you what I consider to be the top 10 rules of writing from the world's most famous writers. So the number 10 rule is write a draft, then let it rest, and this comes to us via Stephen King. It's fantastic advice. I usually try to put a day or two between drafts, but it depends on your deadline. Neil Gaiman actually recommends that not only do you let it rest, but that you also give it to a friend who can review it for you and advise you. And Margaret Atwood has the same advice, only she recommends that the person that you ask to read your work and advise you should never be someone you're romantically involved with, unless, of course, you wish to end it, at which time it's great advice. So number 9, also from Stephen King, is to read a lot. And Stephen King actually writes, read a lot. If you want to be a better writer, you need to read a lot to get fresh input, broaden your horizons, and deepen your knowledge. I think it's great, and I advise all aspiring copywriters to immerse themselves in the masters like Andy Maslin and Seth Godin. I consider them required reading for copywriters. So number 8 comes to us via George Orwell, who said, "Never use a long word when a short one will do." God love him for saying that. Instead of writing utilize, it's better to write use, or instead of receive, why not write get? We're so used to seeing these puffy words clutter our document that we almost mistake them for good writing. So Orwell also said, never use the passive voice when you can use the active voice. And it's funny when it comes to the passive voice because we switch to it whenever we want to sound important. Instead of saying the women's auxiliary held a meeting to discuss the problem of passive language, we'll write, a meeting was held by the women's auxiliary to discuss the problem of passive language. Well, let's just hope that the women's auxiliary was able to work that one out. So number 6 is know your audience, and this comes to us by my very favorite, Canada's beloved late Pierre Berton. So before you write any copy, ask yourself, what is it that your audience is passionate about and what are they pissed off about? I call it the 2 Ps, and until you know them, according to Mr. Berton, you have no business writing. And Pierre Berton also said, number 5, recycle and read the good stuff before you write. And again, great advice. I always do this before I start a new project. I literally will turn off the phone and start reading it. I find it gets me in the right place and reminds me of all the good things that I need to do in order to make the copy that I write shine. So number 4 is honor the miraculousness of the ordinary. And this comes to us from famous biographer Andrew Morton. And if you haven't got a clue what he's talking about, go and read a poem by Sherman Alexie or read the novel Prodigal Summer by Barbara Kingsolver. These are 2 of my all-time favorite authors, and they have both taught me that I don't need to look outside of the ordinary to find inspiration. And number 3, this is actually one of my absolute favorite rules. I live by it, and so should you. Stephen King says that good copy equals draft minus 10%. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that. It's so important. The formula is that your good copy should equal your draft minus 10%. Brilliant. The number 2 rule comes to us via Bob Cooper, who is my favorite writing teacher at Seneca, where I did my postgrad. And Bob said, look at every word in a sentence and decide if they're really needed. And if not, kill them. Be ruthless. Bob used to always say, don't be afraid to kill your babies. And of course, us writers, we know when we're writing this prose to go and delete something we really like. That's exactly how it feels, but you've got to be ruthless. And the number 1 most important rule comes to us by Al Kennedy, who said, and I love this, he said, remember, writing doesn't love you. It doesn't care. Nevertheless, it can behave with remarkable generosity. Speak well of it, encourage others, and pass it on. So I hope that you have found this helpful. If you want more